The summer night was warm in the desert town of Arroyo when the sky split open. It wasn't a thunderstorm, and it wasn't lightning, though the people who later reported it used those words because they had nothing better. A shimmering oval, like a curtain woven from green fire, appeared above the sand dunes. From within it stepped a figure, tall and lean, with hair that glowed faintly silver beneath the stars. Her name, as she told them later, was Lyra. She looked human but not quite. Her eyes carried galaxies within them. Her voice echoed with resonance that made windows hum, and her skin seemed to shift ever so slightly, as though woven from light rather than flesh. For 3 years she lived among humans. At first, governments wanted to study her. Scientists came from around the world. But she refused cages, and she refused to be a specimen. She chose instead to live quietly in Arroyo, where the desert met the stars. Children adored her, elders respected her, and locals accepted her strangeness the way desert folk often do, with patience and stories. Among all who met her, one man stayed closest. Daniel Reyes, a history teacher at the local high school. Daniel was quiet, kind, and curious without being greedy. He would bring her books, ask her about her homeworld, and teach her Earth's myths. They would walk by the dried riverbeds at night, speaking of time, memory, and what it meant to belong. Over time, something unspoken grew between them. Lyra had no need for human words like love. Her kind bonded differently, through memory, through soul. Yet one evening, as the two sat under the Milky Way, she pressed her hand against his and whispered, "You stay with me, even when I leave." And then one day she did. Without warning, without goodbye, the sky opened again. The green fire curtain reappeared. Lyra was drawn into it, her figure dissolving into the strange horizon of light. Arroyo was left silent. Daniel stood at the place she had vanished for hours, waiting. Days turned into weeks, then months, then years. The world forgot her. News reports were archived. Governments shifted focus. Only Daniel kept waiting, returning every night to the dunes where she had once looked at him with eyes full of galaxies. The return. It had been 11 years when the sky opened again. Daniel was older now, lines etched into his face, hair touched with gray. He no longer taught at the school. He lived quietly, caring for his widowed mother and spending evenings in the desert where the stars still spoke. That night, the shimmer bloomed above the dunes once more. But this time the light was weaker, trembling. From within it stepped Lyra. She was changed. Her once silver hair now carried strands of dark ash. Her luminous skin was dimmer, like a star nearing collapse. Her eyes, though still vast, were heavy with something Daniel had never seen in her before. Sorrow. Lyra, he whispered, barely believing. She stepped toward him, her knees buckling slightly. He caught her in his arms. She was warm, trembling. For the first time she felt fragile. "I told you," she said softly, her voice breaking. "You would stay with me. And you did. That is why I found the way back." Daniel wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but he held her instead, letting her steady her breath. Only after long silence did she begin to speak. Her world, she explained, was not like Earth. Her people traveled not through space, but through currents of consciousness. They lived between dimensions, feeding on energy not of matter but of memory and thought. Her return to her people had not been voluntary. She had been recalled. But when she returned, she discovered something terrible. Her people were dying. The energy they had relied upon for eons was collapsing. Their dimension was unraveling, and only those who had bonded with memories outside their own could survive the dissolution. "Do you understand?" she asked him, her eyes searching. "When I bonded with you, Daniel, you became part of my soul. Your memory, your essence. It gave me strength when everything else was lost. I returned because without you, I could not have endured. Daniel's throat tightened. He had spent years believing she was gone forever, perhaps only a dream. Yet here she was, telling him that something of him had lived within her all that time. But her return came with danger. She had not come alone. The desert wind shifted, and the shimmer behind her pulsed. From its depths, shadows began to emerge. Unlike Elira, they were twisted forms, humanoid but skeletal, with eyes like fractured glass. They moved slowly, hungrily. They followed me, Elira said, her voice hardening. Those who could not bond, who lost themselves. They hunt what they cannot be. They devour memory, consume identity. They will not stop. Daniel stared. The shadows hissed, their bodies bending unnaturally as they stepped onto Earth's sand. What do we do? He asked, fear in his voice. Elira turned to him, her luminous eyes burning brighter for a moment. We fight. Together. Or Earth becomes their feast. The conflict. The town of Arroya was small, unprepared for cosmic horrors. Yet when Elira warned them, Daniel standing at her side, the people remembered the kindness she had shown long ago. They chose to trust her again. The shadows multiplied at night, feeding on forgotten places, abandoned homes, and even the memories of those they touched. Victims were left hollow, unable to recall their own names. Panic spread. Elira taught Daniel how to resist them, not with weapons but with memory. Her people's enemies thrived on emptiness, but recoiled from strong, shared remembrance. To fight them was to hold on to who you were, to anchor your mind so firmly that the shadows could not unravel it. So Daniel rallied the town. Together they built bonfires in the desert, gathering every night to tell stories, to sing, to recall family histories aloud. Children recited the names of grandparents. Elders spoke of wars and loves long past. Couples repeated vows. Farmers described harvests of decades ago. The air became thick with human memory. And the shadows writhed. They tried to attack, but the stronger the people's voices grew, the weaker the creatures became. Elira fought beside Daniel, her presence amplifying every memory, every song, weaving them into a shield of light. But the battle was not without cost. One evening, as the shadows surged more fiercely than ever before, one of them struck Daniel directly. He staggered, his mind flooding with a void so deep it felt like drowning. Memories slipped. His father's face, his first day of teaching, even Elira's arrival years ago. No! Elira cried, rushing to him. She placed her hands on his temples, her eyes glowing with desperate intensity. Hold on. Stay with me. Her voice pierced the void, carrying warmth. Daniel clung to it, forcing himself to remember. The desert night skies, his mother's lullabies, and most of all, Elira's hand pressed against his years ago when she first said, "You stay with me." The shadow shrieked and dissolved into nothingness. By dawn, the shimmer closed, cutting off the rift. The remaining shadows were gone, scattered back into dimensions that no longer held sway here. Arroya was safe. Earth was safe, ending the choice. In the aftermath, the town rebuilt. Some memories were lost forever, but most survived, stitched stronger through the act of remembering together. Arroya became known as a place where stories mattered, where people clung fiercely to who they were.